Hello there. This is First Adam. I'm doing another Diablo 3 video. Today I'll be doing a guide for a cold build for a Demon Hunter. I've been helping out quite a few people with their Demon Hunter builds. They've been just running with me, and I've been carrying them and doing rifts and greater rifts and everything, and getting them geared and farmed. And they seem to have always a lot of questions, so I decided just to make a video of an entire run through of my Demon Hunter setup. So. Um, This is just a non-seasonal character. I plan on doing a seasonal character once Season 2 starts on February 3rd. I also plan on doing a Barbarian and Wizard build as well. But for now, we're going to just do our Demon Hunter. Alright, so a cold build is pretty simple. Pretty much everybody has pretty much the abilities down to what you should use, but a few tweaks. I've seen some people use a couple different abilities, but um, in my opinion, this is best in slot abilities to use um, for the majority of situations. So first, we're going to start off with our skills. So for my primary, and I don't really use it to deal damage, just to generate hatred whenever I'm low, I like to use Evasive Fire with Focus. It's the fastest generator for the Demon Hunter. All the other generators only generate 6. This one generates 7. Also, you can hit multiple targets with it, so you do get a little bit extra hatred per use if you hit multiple targets. So that's with the primary. My secondary on my mouse, I like to put my clustered arrow with Maelstrom. What's nice is that the clustered arrow hits for the initial damage, and then it shoots out 5 rockets for the 450% weapon damage. Also, you get life per hit, which is very useful, especially in higher greater rifts and when you go up against elites with thorn damage or anything like that. If you have all 5 turrets out and you get hit by a jailer and you somehow survive that, if you don't have awareness or any other life-saving ability on, just 2 or 3 shots of cluster arrow and you're going to be back to full health. So it's this is your pretty much your one and only ability that you're going to be using for your damage. For my number 1 action bar, I like to use Vault with Tumble. Tumble usually costs 8 discipline with the Vault costs 8 discipline. With Tumble, if you use it within 6 seconds, it's reduced by 50%, which is really nice because once you get higher up, you're constantly kiting and just getting out of all the bad that's on the ground. So it's very nice to use. Some people like to use Smokescreen, I've been seeing, because that is the direct counter to situations like Jailer or Wallers and stuff like that. You can run straight through everything and not take any damage. My only problem is it has a cooldown. It's not a very long cooldown. It's like 2 seconds, I believe, but you would have to stack 50% cooldown reduction just to get down to 1 second. And even then, that can still be sticky in some situations. I mean, they throw up a wall and you use, Smokescreen to get out of it.
If we stand here much longer,
And once you get
I
out
am
of it,
going to rob
it's
Just
that
so
1 second cooldown, but all of a sudden you get hit with a lightning storm and that kills you instantly, or another jail or something. With Vault, you can just use that constantly. You could just keep spamming and fly all over the map. Next is Sentry with Polar Station. This is a huge damage buff for yourself because one of the gems that you use is Bane of the Trapped, and the only ability that you have in all your skills that slows is this one. So you'd always plant one of these at the enemy's feet, and then I like to put the rest of them kind of like in a line behind it. So if they run at me, they're continuously running through a stream of cold. Kind of like, you plant one at the enemies and you plant a couple like this. So that they would have to run through, and they're constantly slow, dealing bonus damage. Also, it makes a nice line because it's going to put a little bit of time delay on all your attacks, so therefore you can actually see the individual attacks. And for some reason, that seems to do a lot more damage. I think there might be a glitch or a bug, but if I stack all my sentries on top of each other, and I fire one, and they all fire, it doesn't seem to do as much damage as if I have them all spread out. For some reason, when I have them spread out, it seems to do more damage. Next, I like to use Preparation with the Ruin Punishment. This is only a 20-second cooldown, so it's really nice, especially when you're in a scenario where you're constantly running out of hatred because of Cluster Arrow costs 40 hatred, and since you don't have 3 to 350 hatred, or in some other classes like the monk, you can get up to 350 spirit. You know 3 or 4 of these shots, and you're out of hatred already. So this is very nice. It gives you 75 back. And next, because you're using the Marauder set, it's a given that you're going to have Companion. Doesn't really matter which rune you put on, it's just for show because you're going to get all the runes with your Marauder 6 set. For passives, I like Call of the Weak. This is another damage buff that you get for enemies that are slowed, so your turrets actually increase the damage that you deal by 20% as long as they're within that radius, as you see on the side. Within that ring, they'll take 20% more damage. Next is Custom Engineering. This one's really nice because you can have up to 3 turrets in your charge, allowing you to get out turrets quicker. And also adds to the stack, so you can have up to 3 sentry turrets. If you have the item Bombardier's Rucksack, you can have up to 5 turrets. So this is a must-have on the Marauder 6 set. Next passive is Steady Aim, just because, if you're a demon hunter, you should never have any enemies closer than 10 yards from you. You should always be out of range. That's why I like to use Vault. It gets me out of range of everything and increases all damage by 20%, so it's really great. Next, this is a must-have as well. Ballistics. Increase your rocket damage by 100%. In addition, you have 20% chance to fire a homing rocket for 150% damage. This is really nice because your cluster arrows release 5 rockets at 450% weapon damage. Now with that ballistics passive, that means they do 900% weapon damage, which is really nice because when you have all 5 turrets out and there's an enemy and you shoot cluster arrow once, you're shooting it once, and 1 from each turret. That is 6 different cluster arrows being shot at the same time, which equals out to be 30 rockets. And that clears trash extremely quickly. And if that's 30 rockets, if you hit 30, if all rockets hit enemy units, that's 30% of your life back in one shot, just because of the life of regeneration on that. It's really nice. Now, one thing to note, that if there's only 1 enemy and you shoot once, only 1 rocket from each cluster arrow is going to hit that 1 enemy, not all 5. So if all 5 are hitting, this would be seriously OP. So that's my rundown for the skill sets. Next, I'm going to move on to items and gear. So I'd say one of the best in slot weapons to have is a 2-handed crossbow. Now, it doesn't really matter what 2-handed crossbow you have. Some crossbows have different passives on it. I picked this one up just 2 days ago. I think it rolled really well. But one thing you definitely want to look for is the resource cost reduction. Resource cost reduction is a must-have on just about every item, as many as you can get, because that's going to reduce the hatred cost of your clustered arrow and your sentries, allowing you to shoot out more per run. And now, what's best to do is re-roll. If you get even a perfect roll, you can still make it better, because you can re-roll certain stat on there to increase or to gain additional stat and use an item of Ramalati's Gift. And if you've never seen one before, I'll show you them. It's one of these ones. Use this on a item and select an unsocketed weapon to add a socket to it. So the best thing to do is, if you ever get an item that has a socket already on it, re-roll the socket for another stat, and then use a Ramalati's Gift on it to give you that socket back. And also, a must-have is the Ring of the Royal Grandeur. Getting a really good Ring of the Royal Grandeur is really hard. I would love to get one that's main stat, crit chance, and crit damage and socket, but that's, I think, impossible to get. So this is the best we're going to have to do, because attack speed always rolls on the Ring of the Royal Grandeur. So next thing you're going to want are the Marauder's Gloves, and you want, ideally, perfect stats and everything. 10% crit chance, 50% crit damage, 8% resource cost reduction, and maximum dex. You want to get to those stats as high as possible, no matter what. Um, and so for this build, you're going to have the gloves, the shoulder, the chest piece, legs, and boots for the Marauders. Um, on the shoulders, you're going to want, ideally, the ideal stats that you want is dexterity, resource cost reduction, cooldown reduction, and sentry damage. But that's really hard to get, especially for an ancient item. I had just a regular pair of those, but I got this ancient one, and um, no, I rolled off the cooldown reduction for sentry damage. Now, cooldown reduction isn't as important for a cold build with my skill setup here as resource cost reduction. So you want resource cost reduction over cooldown reduction. Um, and on the chest piece, you're going to want main stat, vit, and sentry damage. Um, so and so that's between the shoulders and chest piece. That's 30% sentry damage. So your sentries and all the abilities that you use, the damage is going to be increased by 30%. That's a heavy damage buff. For the belt, I have a witching hour. I got really lucky. I got a really good witching hour.
Did you forget to eat?
If you can get one of these, great.
No. In fact,
Another
they
belt that you can
decided to get
use
the
is
things
the
eating
Vigilante
out of the
belt,
way all at once.
or
I kept
a
at it until I
Hellcat
couldn't
waistguard.
take
The
another
Vigilante
bite.
belt is the only belt that you can get
Sounds like you
cooldown
ate too
on.
much then.
So you can get up to
Being
8%
immortal is
cooldown
very
on your belt,
complicated.
which is really nice. And it's a pretty tanky belt. But if you're pretty good with your toughness, and you want just more damage, and you don't have a witching hour, go with a Hellcat waistguard. For your legs, you're going to want main stat, vit, armor, and sockets. I mean, you can reroll the armor for evasive fire damage, but since you only use evasive fire damage just to generate hatred, there's no use of rolling it. You might as well get some more toughness out of it. For the boots, you're going to want main stat, vit, all resist if you need toughness, and if you're lucky enough to get 15% cluster arrow damage. Cluster arrow damage is a must on the boots. Some people like to get the movement speed on them. I don't like to get movement speed on boots at all with the Marauder 6 set. Because the 6 set, you get all your companions, and your ferrets that are one of your companions give you 10% increased movement speed. And if you want to max out your cab, you can use your Paragon levels to get the other 15% to max it out at 25%. So there's really no need to sacrifice a great deal of toughness or a great deal of damage just for a little bit of movement speed when you're getting almost the same amount of movement speed just from your ferrets. The other piece is the Bombardier's Rucksack. This is very essential. It's not a must, but it's for higher level Greater Rifts. This is a huge damage increase. Just because you can have up to 5 sentries with this if you have custom engineering. And what's nice is if you have 5 turrets, that if you look at the Marauder 6 set, for every turret or sentry that you have out, you deal your damage is increased by 100%, or you deal 100% increased damage. So that's 500% weapon damage versus 400% or 300% if you don't have a Bombardier's Rucksack. So that's quite a difference. That's a huge difference in everything. I actually have the wrong ring on right now. I usually have this ring on. I was gold farming the other day. The other ring I like to have, now this is up for debate, but what I found is that the 2 set, Compass Rose and Traveler's Pledge, if you can get good rolls on them, they heavily outweigh a Stone of Jordan. But getting a 2-piece set out of like this that rolled pretty good is pretty difficult. If you don't, Stone of Jordan, cold damage. Ideally, I did not roll off the dexterity on this because it was ancient. If you roll off a main stat on the ancient item, it doesn't make it ancient anymore. So ideally, if it's not ancient, you want cold damage. You typically want, if your crit chance is low, crit chance, but ideally crit damage, elite damage, sockets. On all your jewelry pieces, you have to have sockets. They are a must. So Stone of Jordan, if you don't have one, I would recommend Compass Rose. If you don't have a Compass Rose, the best rings stats you want on rings is main stat, crit chance, crit damage, socket. That would be ideal. If you already have really high crit chance, if you're above 50% crit chance, you can sacrifice crit chance on a couple on probably your rings and get resource cost reduction or cooldown reduction instead. That's perfectly fine. But you don't want to go below 50% critical hit chance. Also, you should try to maintain at least 500% crit damage. I was at 400%, and for the longest time, I was using my Stolen Jordan here. And when I got the Traveler Pledge and the Compass Rose, increased my crit damage to 500%, and my average crit damage against White Trash and Elites went from, on average, of 230 million to about 280 million, and on Elites it went up to 325 million. And I've seen a crit go as high as 415 million. So, I mean, that 60 to 80 million damage difference between a good roll on a Stolen Jordan and just the 2-set bonus from here is drastically improved. So that's why I like to go with this set. Now, another alternative to that set is you use the Stolen Jordan and you have a Hellfire Amulet. Now, what's nice is that I got a good Hellfire Amulet, but just a bad passive. The Perfection passive, it increases my defense. So it's nice, yes, but it doesn't increase my damage. I have pretty good defense, especially if you're going to do party greater rifts. You should have a 0 DPS not demon, 0 DPS witch doctor or monk, or you can do it with other classes too, but they're pretty much going to CC the hell out of everything, so you're not going to be taking much damage at all. If you can get a good Hellfire Amulet that has one of the 4 passives that you want, which again, Call of the Week, Custom Engineering, Something Aim of Ballistics, that is going to be awesome, because when you go into higher greater rifts, you're going to have to switch out, and you're going to switch out Steady Aim for Awareness. Awareness gives you a second life. When you receive fatal damage, you come back to life at 50%. Only a 60-second cooldown, which is really nice. So this is a direct counter to Jailers. So greater rifts 38 and higher, I recommend running this. Unless if you have really good toughness, you can start running this at greater rift 40. But at greater rift 40, unless if you have 17 to 20 million toughness, Jailers are going to one-shot you easily. So unless you can get a really good roll on your Hellfire Amulet, the next best thing is these. Reaper's Wraps are the best in slot bracers, just because of the health globes restore 30% of your primary resource. This is really good, especially in a team fight. Everybody's picking up health globes all the time, and so that's going to help keep your hatred generation up, and you're going to be able to fire off more cluster arrows, which then turns into more damage and more sustain for you. So this is a must, and you can make these. These are on a drop, so just run up some Forgotten Souls, get some mats, and you can sit here. I made probably 30 of them before I got this. I think it rolled pretty good, and I've been using them ever since, and they're the best thing in slot. Back to the amulet. Amulet stats, you're going to want Dexterity, crit damage, crit chance, socket. Though another thing you could do is it almost evens out. Is instead of Dexterity, you can go with cold damage. I've been seeing a lot of people running cold damage instead of Dexterity, so you got cold damage, crit chance, crit damage, and socket. But, I mean, the cold damage kind of, unless if you already have high sheet damage, the Dexterity is going to be better because, and like I said, high sheet damage, I'm sitting, as you see, I'm unbuffed. I do have Steady Aim on, but, even without Steady Aim, my sheet damage is pretty high, 1.881 million. So 20% of that's going to outweigh 718 Dexterity. 718 Dexterity will probably give me about maybe 120,000 sheet damage, but 20% cold damage. If I open up details, my cold damage is already at 2.25 million. 20% is going to give me about another 250,000. So if you have high sheet damage, great, cold damage is the best. If you have low sheet damage, 1.4 or 1.5 million or less, Dexterity is going to be the way to go. And speaking of Dexterity, you want at least 10,000 Dexterity, minimum 10,000, to do a lot of burst damage. This is going to be ideal for you. Also increases your armor, gives you a lot of toughness. And then for the last piece is going to be your helmet. Pride's Fall is the offset item that you need for Cluster Arrow if you're going cold. Just because if you don't take damage within 5 seconds, after 5 seconds, your resource cost reduction is reduced by 30%, which is amazing. So right now, because of this helmet, my resource cost reduction is 50.42%. My Cluster Arrows is 40 hatred, now they're 20 hatred. I have 150 hatred, which means I can shoot quite often. The nice thing is, you use your hatred generators when you're running low, and you can keep this going for a while.
Hatred is too low.
And then you can just use your hatred generator, and you can get back pretty quickly. So it's definitely the best helmet in slot. And the only way you can get this is by farming Act 3 bounties. There's a lot of people out there looking for groups that is speed rush, pretty much just join, do the bounty, collect the reward, quit, remake, and rinse. And just keep doing that process until you get it. I probably did about 8 bounties before I got it, so it's not too hard to do. Take about an hour, and you can get one if you're lucky enough to get a good roll. This is the very first Pridefall helmet I ever got on this character, and it rolled a 6% crit chance, so I think I got lucky on that. You are going to want Cluster Arrow damage on it, and because you want 15%, but it's for some reason it seems like the 1% damage that you're trying to get never rolls. I've gotten 15% on everything else it can roll on except Cluster Arrow, and I've spent probably 150 million gold on it, which gold isn't that hard to come by, but it's just annoying. Which I never talked about the stats on the quiver. The stats on the quiver, it's going to roll with attack speed. The highest attack speed you can get is possible, yes. Bombardier's Rucksack is a very rare rucksack. I know a lot of people that have been farming this for weeks on end and not been able to get one, spending all the blood shards. I've also had friends that spent their first 100 blood shards and got a ancient one. So it is probably the rarest quiver in game. But you want Cluster Arrow, crit chance, attack speed, and main stat. I did have resource cost reduction on it, and it was 8%, but I re-rolled it for a socket because after you reach the 50% mark, whatchamacallit, you don't get 8%. There is a, word's escaping me now. It's a, sorry, the word's escaping. But pretty much 8% would only give me about another 2 to about 2.5%. Just because it's a, well, I can't think of the word. So, but needless to say, it wasn't worth it. So I re-rolled it. I was re-rolling for something else, and I decided just to get a socket on it because 280% dex increased my damage by about 30,000 or so, of 45,000 sheet damage. So, and it increased my toughness, so I just went with that instead. But ideally, cooldown reduction would be handy on it, or resource cost reduction or socket. If you're at 50% resource cost reduction, you don't need it on anything else. You're pretty much golden. So it's really up to play what you want to do on it. So that wraps up the items. I think I covered everything.
About making positive changes in your life?
Ideal stats you want to look for is you want at least 10 million toughness. That's a good number. I'm at higher toughness right now just because I got a lot of ancient gear on. Everything's ancient but my gloves, and I actually do have some ancient gloves that rolled very well, but they don't have the resource cost reduction on it. So, and they give me a shit ton of toughness, but I want that resource cost reduction. So, next thing you're going to want to look at is Paragon levels. For core, you want to max out your maximum hatred to 50. I wish you can go higher, but you can't. Then everything else you just pretty much want to put in dexterity. You can max out your movement speed if you want to be able to move a little bit faster and everything, but I do fine because I use Vault, so I just put it all towards dexterity. Offense, ideally you want cooldown reduction, crit chance, crit damage. I've been just doing a lot of regular riffs, and you know they can't hurt me at all, and I just wanted to one-shot everything, so I just put my cooldown reduction towards attack speed just to give me that little bit extra damage. But in greater rifts, I switch it back over to cooldown reduction. Defense, you want to max out resist all, life, and armor. I've tested this every single different way, and this is the best toughness increase. If you put everything towards armor, all resist, and life, you're going to lose actually about 750,000 toughness. So doing it this way, if you're not already Paragon level 800, is the best way to, I'm sorry, 600, is the best way to get your maximum toughness. Now, because you're cold, you don't need life per second generation because your cluster arrows regenerate 1% life every time you hit an enemy. So there's no need for that. Utility, resource cost reduction is number 1. I do life per hit as number 2, and then gold vine just because you're ranged, so area damage really does not apply to you. It can still proc on you, but since you're keeping the distance from the enemy, it's not going to do any damage to them. So there's no need to put any points into it. So that wraps up the Paragon levels. I will kind of demonstrate kind of how I do everything in just normal settings. Let's go to this misery for fun. So as we see, there's enemies up here. I like to spread out
I will not do that.
my turrets at once. You just kind of want to keep your distance. As you see, I got a little icon here, Prideful. That lets me know that I've not been hit and that my resource cost reduction is going to maintain 50%. If I do get hit, let's see, can I get somebody that hits me? Come on. There we go. You see it goes away, and my spending skyrockets. And I almost ran out just because I didn't have that. So, having resource cost reduction is a must. Clear stuff very quickly. Hordes of enemies that just die just because you have such large AoE. You know, 30 rockets with 5 arrows is really nice. And what's also nice about the Polar Station is they have incredibly long range. That I'll set my turrets up, you know, turrets that I have set up way back here are going to shoot. As you see right here. As long as there's nothing blocking the turret's path, it's always going to shoot as long as you're shooting at the enemy. So, no matter what range. It takes a little bit longer to get there, but on regular rifts, when there's long hallways and stuff, or in regular rifts, or even open fields like this, see how it took some time for it to get here, it really helps saving on your Patriot stuff. But once you get so far away, it's best to set up new turrets. Positioning your turrets is key. You kind of want to block pathways and stuff, so the enemy always has to run through them to get to you, no matter what. And which then will cost your increased damage. Which I just realized I never put my gems in. I never talked about this, but I'm going to teleport back and get those gems. So like I said, the gems I like to use is Bane of the Trapped. Enemies underneath movement and parrying effects. Damage is increased by 28.8% at rank 46 here. I also like Bane of the Powerful, just because I can elite pack, I gain 20% additional damage, and I do 15% more damage towards it. And that's a huge, huge damage increase. The other one is Zystone of Vengeance. This one's a little bit harder to maintain. The further you are away from the enemy that you are targeting, not the enemy that's hitting you. So you can have an enemy right at within 5 yards of you, but if you're shooting at an enemy, if you're aiming at an enemy that's further away, like if I'm shooting up here, I'm going to deal 50%, I'm going to do 30.5% more damage to this target, but I'm not going to do that much damage to this target here. So it does not work how, and I had the wrong passive on as well, how steady aim works. If there's an enemy within 10 yards, you don't get this effect. That's not how Zystone works. So enemies that are really far away, you'll deal maximum damage. Enemies that are close, you won't deal bonus damage at all. So, well, at least you'll deal at least 6.10% additional damage to it, a maximum of 30.5. There, and as you see, my regular my damage went up now. So let's hop back into here. And we can continue. Let's do a couple other things. Wait for my. There There's a prize fall coming up. You're seeing, 150 million crit. It's pretty much every day.
I will not be.
And as you see, my damage is at almost 3.2 million, just because being another powerful, a companion, and my other steady aim proc. So I got the key. I got a crappy pole arm. Yay! I can use it. Great idea for that. So
I am returning to town.
no, this is, and you see how easily I'm killing this stuff. And this is on T6. I got the achievement yesterday for completing a rift in under 2 minutes with this build. Very quick, very simple. I've been able to, with this build and the current gear that I have and set up, I've been able to solo Greater Rift of 43 just fine. If I had about 30 more seconds, I could have beat 44. But that was before I had this new weapon.
I am returning to town.
And the Pride's Fall. So now that I have this, I think I can beat Greater Rift 44 just fine. As you see my keys here, I got a couple rank 44s and a 46. I got this one with a group, so. Got this. Yep, garbage. And the best way that I find to get gear for other, once your Demon Hunter gets pretty much geared, I mean, there's only so much that I can improve upon. I mean, I've been trying to get ancient gloves, but and an ancient marauders, and I'm always looking out for better pieces. But I mean, this can't get a whole lot better. I mean, the maximum dexterity on it is 650. I got 640. I could get a little bit more of it, but not a whole lot. So, I mean, if I come across the piece, great, but I'm not really spending blood shards for a better piece. I'm just going off of drops alone. I pretty much save my blood shards now, and once I reach the cap, I jump to another character and spend them all on that character. So far, I've been able to gear my entire Crusader purely off of blood shards. I've been doing the Phalanx build, as I call it, the pony build. Send out a bunch of horses and stuff, knocks them up, stuns them. It's great because it's a perma-stun. It's awesome. I did not play him. I got him up to level 70, played around with his abilities for a couple days, but that's it. I did not do any greater rifts, no farming at all. And I farmed every single piece of legendary gear that I need just through blood shards. And the nice thing is, you start getting really good legendary drops at rank 30 and up. You get really good blood shard drops at rank 40 and up. At rank 40, you're going to get about 240 blood shards just for one Greater Rift. At rank 46, I got over 300 blood shards one round. I think the average is actually about 275, 280. But there are always chances to get a little bit higher than normal. So definitely, I just do 2 of these, switch over to my character. I mean, it only takes me a rank 40 is what I usually farm for blood shards. Only takes me about 8 minutes to do. So 8 minutes, so 16 minutes, and I have 500 blood shards. I go and spend it. I usually get 2 to 3 legendaries from Kadala out of 500 blood shards. So it's not bad. I mean, it's definitely a lot easier to get gear that way for other characters than to play T1, T2, T3, anything other than T5 and T6. Sure, my Crusader can handle it, but it's going to take me, 30 minutes or so just to clear one rift. I mean, full clear. So this way is definitely more efficient. Also, one other thing is potion. My favorite potion is the Potion of Regeneration. There's another one out there, Potion of, I think it's Life on Hit or something. It gives you life on hit, and it's like 8,000, 8,000 or so. That's really nice and everything, but I like the regeneration better just because most of the time when I get hit by stuff, it's going to be AoE effects and dots. Fire's burning me and stuff like that. So even though I use my potion and I run out of the fire, but if that dot is still on me, still burning me, the additional life per second over 5 seconds counters that dot. Whereas if I have the life per hit, I have to sit there and shoot stuff. And if I'm low on health, you don't want to stand still. You got to be kiting. And if you're kiting with lots of AoE on the ground, you're going to get hit. So this one, you can just fully disengage, run in the complete opposite direction that the enemy are, and still regenerate your life. Then once you're at about quarter to half of your life, you throw up some turrets, shoot some long-range missiles, generate your life from your cluster arrows, and you're back to full health, no problem. So, so yeah, that pretty much wraps up my full guide on Demon Hunters and what to gear for them and how to play them and everything. So I hope you enjoyed it, and leave a comment, like the video. If you think there are other improvements, I'd love to hear about them. You can either leave me a comment, personal message on YouTube, anything like that. It'd be great. So talk to you guys later.